Hi guys, I'm here today to make a hopefully quite short review of a book that has recently come out and that you might well have heard about over the last few weeks, and that is The Mermaid and Mrs Hancock by Imogen Hermes Gowar. It came out on the 25th of January, but I actually managed to get a proof copy, so I read it a little bit earlier. And just as a side note, the finished hardback edition is just gorgeous. I'm definitely going to be buying a copy. It has lovely sprayed edges and just a beautiful cover as well. This is published by Vintage, one of the imprints of Penguin, and it's going to be their lead debut 2018 novel, so it's being accompanied by a huge marketing campaign, and I'm sure over the coming months you will see it in really prominent positions on bookshops, and I hope other people will also review it. There's been a lot of hype and a lot of comparison with other recent female historical fiction authors like Sarah Perry, who wrote the amazing Essex Serpent last year, or 2016 I suppose, not last year, and also Jessie Burton with The Miniaturist, which was great. I think it's tricky with really hyped books because it inevitably makes expectations so much higher, and it's easy for them to be quite underwhelming when you actually read them. So I was really glad when I read this book that it lived up to all my expectations and gave me even more than I ever hoped for, so I really think it will be a runaway success this year. It is historical fiction set in Georgian London in 1785 about a merchant, Jonah Hancock, whose ship is, unbeknownst to him, sold in exchange for a real mermaid. The author of this book has previously worked in the British Museum and was inspired by a particular exhibit they have there, which is of a mermaid. It was found around this time in Japan, and while it was really just a stitched together torso of a monkey and tail of a fish, it did cause quite a stir at the time. In the novel, Hancock displays the mermaid and it's widely popular, and it also attracts the attention of a local brothel keeper who wants to exhibit it in a slightly more lively fashion. And I think it's this collision of two different worlds, that of Jonah Hancock and that of the high calibre courtesans in the brothel, that is at the heart of this novel. In particular, it follows one of the courtesans, Angelica Neal, and I think some of the book's most interesting ideas comes through her experiences. And she's a complex character, and I think a very real one, because she is sometimes spoiled and naive. At other times she is fiercely headstrong and desirous of independence from men. In her we see the moral struggle that some of these women face between wanting to be physically desired by men but also wanting to be free from their control, and through prostitution they find some of this power over men that they wouldn't otherwise have as a wife. So there's a lot in here about what it means to be a woman, especially in this time period when to become a wife was to become property, and especially the difficulties that some women face who are used to more independence than being a wife affords them. And there was a really interesting quotation that I liked by one woman who's recently become married, and I've redacted it a bit to avoid any spoilers. It says, "She will never be her own self in the world again. She is wife of, later she will be mother of, perhaps some energetic young man whose achievements will never be traced back to she who birthed him. These claims upon her will only multiply. She will be mother-in-law, grandmother, widow, dependent, and accordingly her own person will be divided and divided and divided until there is nothing left." It's really rare in my reading experience anyway to see the perspective of a prostitute in a way that is not disrespectful, it's not looking down on them, but is regarding them as an actual human being. And especially in books set in Georgian and Victorian periods, particularly those that were written in that time period, they focus much more on the upper classes and those people who sneer on lowly people like Angelica and even Jonah the merchant. So in this context, I think the mermaid in this story takes on added significance. It is important in moving the plot along, but the physical mermaid itself isn't as central to the narrative as I expected. But I think it does have a kind of symbolic status. And if you think of the role of the mermaid in mythology, it is, a mythicized, beautiful female that is very attractive to men. The comparisons between them and the courtesans in this novel are unmissable, and I think it really explores the morality of the capture and display of these women within these brothels. The novel also explores grief, as Jonah has lost both his wife and his child in childbirth, and you do see this come up through the novel, though not really until the second half, and I do wish it was fleshed out a bit more. I feel like his narrative voice is drowned out under Angelica's because hers is so strong, but it is only a small complaint. The book's around 500 pages, so it's quite long, but it's quite a fast read, I found. I really whizzed through it because it was very compelling. It was an exciting plot. It had me interested all the way through, right to the end. I felt the attention to historical detail was really meticulous. It's clear that Imogen Hermes Gowar has done her research, but it wears this research quite lightly. It just feels like the time and place is evoked really beautifully. And the writing style itself, I think, is one of its biggest merits. It has some beautiful passages of description, and it's just so sumptuous. It absolutely brings the setting to life. It's one of those books that is an absolute glory to read. I would like to say more about the themes in the book, but a lot of those don't really come up until around the last third, and I don't want to spoil anything. So I would just say that it really brings to the fore ideas of fakery and illusion, showmanship and display, and it does so extremely competently. These ideas run on several levels. It's not just the overarching plot of the mermaid, but it's also, you know, the illusion of the courtesans and of Jonah's life and history, of London itself and the time it's set in. It is extremely well structured and very deep. I just loved reading it, and I really hope you'll give it a chance if you haven't already. So I'm going to end it there, but please do read it if you haven't, and let me know what you thought if you've read it already. But I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.